The what we once not did.
The once that we done did not undid, we did.
I think that how would you do like present perfect tense if you're a time traveler?
Oh boy, that's a fun short story right there. That done got not undid, if not wouldn't have did done.
Yes.
Hello, dig for bones.
I don't think anyone knows that I'm the one cut off your toes and put them in the drawer with the sock.
Hello and welcome to the Least Haunted Podcast, a place where science, skepticism, humor, and anthropology meet to discuss all things spooky, haunting, supernatural, and sometimes just the plain ridiculous. I'm your host, Cody Franks, and joining me, as almost always, is speaking splendidly of space, spoiling secrets of supernaturals, spreading special sprinkles, spuriously supplanting speakeasies, sparing the sporting spelunker, splendiferous in sniping spooky with spine-chilling spark, a sporadic and sibilant series of succinct syllabic sequences, such so.
Garth, it's me. Hello, I'm the co-host. Nice to meet you all.
That was so much sibilance.
I dug it all. That was great. There was some spelunking in there. I'm happy.
That
Sprinkling sparkly spelunkers.
is sparing the sporting spelunker.
Yeah.
That was a group effort on Discord. It came from... Oh, I closed my Discord.
Shall I convict the sporting spelunker? Nah, I shall save. Wait, what was it?
Spare!
I shall spare the sporting spelunkers. So, yeah, it came in from Discord?
Yeah, I got.
Nice.
I'm sorry, it has to start up. I closed it, and I want to give the proper attribution.
Probably Ken. He always does the...
But yeah, it was Ken. Well, Ken knew Jared, Havelock, and I can't remember if it was... I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to,
You don't want to overly attribute? Would that take away attribution from all the other names?
Well, I don't want to also It's just less to edit if I just don't keep talking while I'm doing it. You know?
I'd respond, but we'd have to edit it out.
God damn it. Yes, it was Ken, Lord Havelock, knew Jared, Lorian, or Luarian.
Oh, nice.
I think that's how I say
Larian?
it. Luarian.
Luarian is new to the Discord.
Luarian.
Welcome to the Discord.
Oh, no, they've been here for a long time.
Oh, am I thinking of somebody else?
I think
Oh,
so.
SETI fan is new. I'm sorry.
Also, that's been like months, dude.
Oh, well, months go by. I don't know. How long have we been doing this podcast? Anyway, thank you all for the moniker. I really, I am flattered that you all think all that of me. All those S things is wonderful.
Yeah, and if you want to contribute to Garth's moniker or also just, become the latest member of our Discord, come on over. Join us, won't you?
35 strong, I saw.
Yeah.
35 people on the Discord.
And then also, if you want to support us in other ways, there's our Patreon, patreon.com/leasthaunted. Various things that you can get.
Such a variety. The key here is there's more than one type of thing.
Yes.
Various. So, Cody.
Yes.
What are we talking about today?
Okay, so today we are going to be talking about pyramids.
Pyramids.
But more specifically, the Great Pyramids of Egypt, like Giza.
The Great Pyramids of Egypt. Okay.
Although there are pyramids all over the world, none of them get quite the attention that the ones at Giza get. The pyramids of Mesoamerica, like those by the Mayans and the Tehuacanos and the Aztecs, that gets a lot of attention too. That's probably like second place. But yeah, we're just going to focus on this one because as you're going to see, there's so much to talk about just about these pyramids.
Okay. We haven't done the ancient world in a long time. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, and the claims made about these pyramids are...
specious, selective, and suspicious.
I learned a new word today for this.
What's that?
Tendentious. Tendentious.
What's
Something that is
mean?
tendentious expresses a particular opinion or point of view very strongly, especially one that many people disagree with.
It sounds like it's derived from the word tendency, but it's more like tendentious,
Contentious.
Yeah, contentious. It sounds like the same definition
Put the
as
two words together.
contentious.
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 That's basically the pyramids, the theories about the pyramids. And it's usually made by people who, at best, are severely misinformed, and at worst are actively trying to push an agenda and, do harm or take money from people, stuff like
Charlatans.
that. Charlatans,
okay.
yeah. In some kind of triangular shaped scheme like thing.
A scheme. Wow. I wonder what shape. It's triangle. That's 2 dimensions. Interesting.
Also a triangular shaped
A funnel scheme. No, that was
the triangular shaped thingy is that's a callback to the short story Shadow over Innsmouth from our Loveland Frog story.
Oh.
Yeah. If you want to get that deep cut reference, go listen
even
to that.
though you explained it, I still don't get it. I'll have to listen to the episode again.
So yeah, we're gonna debunk a bunch of these and explain what they are and where they come from, and set it straight, lest you fall victim to the pyramid scheme.
What's a pyramid scheme, you ask? It's basically a house of cards where the dickheads at the bottom do all the work and give all the money to the smart guys up at the top.
Garth, real briefly. Let me take... Sorry, I should not have been drinking when I said that. Garth.
I'm going to take a giant drink of water, and while I'm swallowing it, I'll begin talking. Yes.
Garth, real briefly, what do you know about the pyramids?
The pyramids of ancient Egypt?
Yes, on the surface.
They were made by ancient Egyptians, and they were... pharaohs were buried in them, so they're kind of giant sarcophagi. And they had lots of artwork and stuff inside, and they were mummies, and everybody got together in Egypt, and people always said it was slaves that did it, but then there's an understanding that maybe it was more of a public works thing. I don't know. Yeah, that's. Oh, and it was all along the Nile River, because that's where ancient Egyptians all were.
Okay, yeah, you got a lot of that right.
Oh, and Osiris was involved
somehow.
And also,
I'm not talking just general ancient Egypt. Let's talk,
okay,
the
got
pyramids.
it.
Yeah,
I was just gonna start
just everything
describing everything I know about
Egypt.
Yeah, okay. The pyramids were made of rocks too, big blocks of stone.
So I watched a video recently in preparation for this, because it's like, well, you got to know what the crazies are saying, right? If
yes.
You're gonna talk about it. And this video started off with this phrase: no one knows who built the pyramids, when they built the pyramids, how they built the pyramids, or why. But one thing scientists are certain of is that they were not tombs. That is every statement there was a fucking lie.
Well, and it's a self-contradictory one sentence that by the end of the sentence it's saying something different than the premise of the beginning of the sentence. Yeah, it's like that Stonehenge song by Spinal Tap.
No one knows who they were or what they were doing.
What they were doing. But we know they called it Stonehenge.
So the answer to all those questions posed by that video in the very beginning, the video then went on to just be like an hour-long regurgitation of Graham Hancock shit. So yeah. But the answer is the Egyptians of the Old Kingdom, primarily the pharaohs of the 3rd and 4th dynasties. And it's around between 2680 and 2560 BCE.
Okay, 2680, 25. Okay, so we're talking 2,500 years before the Common Era.
Yeah,
so we're
so
talking
this is 4,500 years ago.
Okay,
basically. And that little window of time I gave you is just when like the pyramids start being built through like the height of building them is only, what is that, like
just a couple hundred years.
Yeah, that's like 100 years.
Yeah.
Although they did continue building pyramids for almost 700 years, off and on. But today there's only about 50 that survive. And there's at least 100 that we definitely know about from what's left of them.
Okay.
And I'll explain why there's like nothing really left of those ones as we get into it a little further along. And how do we know all this? Well, because they told us through like texts and writings and artifacts and material culture.
I always think of like hieroglyphics with the pictograms and stuff, but there's a lot more to it, right? I mean, they actually wrote all kinds of things.
Yes.
They had an abbreviated, but they had
there's
like
different, so hieroglyphic
language.
script is the ceremonial script that gets put onto monuments and very important things. But they had this other script, I think it's Coptic, which is like, it's like shorthand, and it's not like bird, snake, whatever. It's like
all
actually,
that intricate. It's just lines and stuff.
Yeah. There actually is another font that they would use.
Uh-huh.
We can actually see the development of pyramids as it happened from its earliest stages until they perfected what the pyramid was.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk like before what we would call ancient Egypt. Before that, what they call pre-dynastic Egypt.
The Proto-Egyptians.
Yeah, the Proto-Egyptians. So we're talking like the Neolithic, like the late Stone Age, basically.
These are the first people to be in the area.
There were several different societies and groups who all occupied this same area that is this like Nile River Valley.
It's a long river. I'm
Yeah,
sure
so
there were a
everything,
bunch of
and
little,
everything,
little
and they were
groups,
counting
yeah.
everything between what they call like the first cataract, the cataract and the delta. Is this one big swath. And so you had like several different proto-Egyptian cultures that are all existing. And they start like taking each other over and wiping each other out and conglomerating.
Oh, humans.
And then you also get an influx of some new people who actually come from the West, that come across the Sahara. The Sahara at this time was a little bit greener. It wasn't as dry and deserty. But it's still not great for like you still can't do agriculture, but you could like track herds of animals.
Well,
and
maybe
live off of
people
them.
were coming along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea too.
So they arrive into the area and they get all into the mix too, and they bring some of their earlier cultural things, and it all just gets mixed together until you get like what we would call those are the Egyptians. That's ancient Egypt. At this point, they are burying their dead. Well, they were burying their dead just in pits in the ground. They would dig into the sand and they would line these pits with either reeds or pieces of wood, which is very hard to come by, in a desert environment.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine they had palm trees, but
Yeah.
ooh.
And they would add a few grave goods and bury them up. And then at some point they must have either dug them up again to either add to them or they got exposed. Somehow they realized that when they did this, the bodies were drying in the sand.
I saw one of these boxes. If you live in the Bay Area, it's California, the San Francisco Bay Area at all, I highly recommend you check out the Rosicrucian Museum.
Mm-hmm.
They have one of these burial boxes, and you can see the wood. I mean, this is many thousands of years old, and they would curl people up into a fetal position so that they would, make it it's a smaller box, so it's a lot easier to manage. And yeah, you can actually see one of those original ones, and they have pegs instead of nails, as I recall. Anyway, it's cool to see something built that's that old that's made of wood.
Yeah.
And they would just bury it in the sand, and I guess people naturally mummified.
Yeah, and this might actually have been a burial practice that came from those people who were coming from the West.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you get actually into, like, right up next to the Nile, it's a little too humid for this to occur naturally. And so that is why you start having artificial mummification. Is they're like, well, we want to keep doing this thing with our dead. We used to bury them in the sand and they would dry out. But now we're in an area where that just doesn't work. So we're going to artificially do this. And that's how you get into mummification. They were still burying them in pits, but now they were constructing things on top of the pits. They would fill them in. And then on the site above where that was, they would build a thing called a mastaba. That's an Arabic loan word. It means mud bench. And they look like very low, squat. They're rectangular, so two sides are longer than the other two. And the sides slope up to a flat top.
Ooh, that's sounding slightly pyramid shaped.
And now it's possible that they might have actually been copying or inspired by ziggurats coming from Mesopotamia. Ziggurats are also kind of pyramid-like. They get lumped in with pyramids when, all the crazy pyramid theories they talk about. Oh, that's an example of another pyramid. It's like, well, no, the ziggurat is not a pyramid. It has like staircases that went up the side.
Well, it all depends on how you define pyramid. Yeah. What is a pyramid?
There's geometric definitions for pyramids.
How smooth do the sides have to be for it to be a pyramid? If you have a whole lot of little steps, but it looks smooth from far away, does that count as a pyramid? Yeah, I don't know.
So we do know that they were trading with people from Mesopotamia and the Levant region because the grain that they were growing was not native grain to that area. It actually came from like Mesopotamia. So we know that they were trading with them, had interactions with them. They might have copied this like somewhat sloped-sided flat top building design.
I can imagine that's a very would be ubiquitous design because it can't fall over as easily. If you have a
Yes.
tower that it has like vertical sides, if it's tall enough, it could fall over.
Yeah.
But if you have, you ever see a pyramid fall over? It might collapse on itself, but it's not gonna because it's wider than it is tall. So
But
that's sturdy.
Here's another interesting thing about the mastabas and what else might be going on here. And this comes courtesy of Dr. Tim King. He was telling me about this. The mastaba actually, they're mimicking something that is in nature. So we know that like the ancient Egyptians and even this pre-dynastic period too, the scarab is something that is sacred.
Is that the beetle?
The scarab is like the
I
dung
remember
beetle.
that from the movie The Mummy.
Yes.
Did the scarabs like crawl into people's skin?
No, that's all made up.
But
for
that
the
was
movie.
a scarab, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
But
so-
they don't do that.
no.
Okay.
Scarabs are dung beetles, and in certain versions of
people's dung.
Egyptian mythology, the sun is a giant ball of poo that is being pushed across the sky by a beetle.
Oh yeah, I love that.
The scarab beetle is also a symbol of life and death and resurrection because they come out of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually speaking of them coming out of the ground, they will make a burrow with a little mound over it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they tunnel down, and that's where they lay their eggs inside poo. But it might be that the mastaba is also a representation of a dung beetle burrow.
Oh, their burrows are pyramidy.
They've got these little mounds of earth and then a
Okay.
pit down below with a chamber. And that's what the
Wow.
mastabas were constructed.
Yeah, because you had pits with chambers where
Yeah.
you put the body.
Now, here's the other thing.
Hmm.
Have you ever seen a scarab beetle's pupa?
No, I can.
So you have the larva, and then it goes into a pupal stage,
Right.
and then it comes out as the dung beetle. The pupa of this scarab looks kind of like a mummy.
Really?
Yes.
Do you think they were mimicking the pupa when they made mummies?
Well,
because
it's-
mummies
it
seem
could
like
be-
a very practical thing.
But it also could be part of it is that the whole idea of creating the mummy is resurrection.
Yeah.
You need to, so it's like, it's symbolic, you know, you gotta think
Okay.
it's metaphorical. So it's just kind of like, well, we need to preserve it. We're going to wrap it up to keep it preserved. But in the wrappings, hey, it also looks like this other symbol of death and rebirth that we have.
So they could have wrapped it any which way, but they intentionally wrapped it in a style that might have mimicked the.
Maybe. I mean, it could be a
it's
coincidence.
theory, yeah,
but it is very interesting that, like, you have these, the early burial mastabas are kind of mimicking this, like, burrow.
I have to say, of all of the ancient theories of what the sun is, I love the idea that it's a piece of poo that a dung beetle is rolling across the sky. That is because you hear about like chariots. Oh yeah, the sun is a guy with a horse, or the sun is a this. No, the sun is a turd, and there's a giant cosmic dung beetle rolling it across the sky. That's amazing.
Well, also in this, I mean, ancient Egypt lasted a ridiculously long time. Like what we're talking about right here is like 5,000 years ago, right?
Right.
That's fucking, and it didn't stop until like they were annexed by Rome and became part of the Roman Empire.
And that was when that culture kind of changed so much that it wouldn't be considered
Yeah.
ancient.
But
Egypt
even in that
anymore.
period of time, you've got thousands of years. So their myths shifted a bit. So
Sure,
like you
I'm
have
sure,
the
yeah.
dung beetle, but also it's on a boat being, floated across the sky by Ra.
Many there was room for lots of metaphors.
Yes, and changing.
Okay.
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 So you got the mastabas. Then along comes a pharaoh named Djoser.
Djoser.
And Djoser says, you know what I would like? I want a really special mastaba, or like something that's really going to set me
The
apart.
mastaba to
End
put
all
all
mastabas.
other mastabas to shame.
So he goes to his royal architect Imhotep and says, build me this thing.
Imhotep, make me the mastabest mastaba you can.
And Imhotep says, all right, what if it's like not just one mastaba, but 6 mastabas stacked on top of each other?
That would definitely fall over.
No, it's cool, man. They get smaller as they go up.
Oh, okay, but so they don't have pointy tops then.
It's still flat.
Oh, okay, so really we're just talking about one giant mastaba.
No.
Oh, so it has stairs.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, I got there in the end.
It's a step pyramid.
Okay.
It becomes what we call a step pyramid. Now, the pyramids of like Mesoamerica are also step pyramids,
Yes.
but
Oh,
they're
yeah.
built different way, different techniques, and for different reasons. It's apples
Was
and
that
oranges.
that was the Aztecs, right?
And the Mayas and the Teotihuacans
Oh,
and
okay.
the Toltecs and a bunch of. We're gonna have Tim come on at some point, and we're gonna do a
We'll
whole
do-
episode about
we'll
that.
do New World
Yeah.
pyramids sometime.
But it's like, but whenever these two get lumped together in like crazy conspiracies, it's like not only were they made thousands of years apart from each other, but they are built out of different materials, different techniques, different reasons within the cosmology.
So you're saying it was coincidental that they ended up looking similar?
They don't even really look similar, dude.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Egyptian pyramids don't have staircases that go up the side of them. Egyptian pyramids don't have temples built on the top of them. Egyptian pyramids,
They don't have giant eyes floating above them.
they don't have
That's a premonition reference to Garth's Corner, everybody. Just hold tight. We're gonna do the eye above the pyramid for Garth's Corner.
they also Egyptian pyramids don't have carvings on the sides of them. They're not adorned with like decorations.
Very different style. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for different reasons.
Okay.
So
You convinced me.
yeah, so the Pyramid of Djoser is constructed sometime between 2670 and 2650 BCE.
Oh, sometime between that or throughout that, because that's like 20 years.
Yes, it's like that's how long it took to construct.
Yeah, how big was it?
It is 62.5 meters or 205 feet tall.
Wow.
In its base, it is it's also not a true square. It's still like the mastabas. It's still rectangular. So it's 121 meters or 397 feet
Wow.
by 109 meters or 358 feet.
They did that in 20 years,
Yeah.
just with human labor and moving blocks. And
But here's the
wow.
thing, yeah, and so but it's also built exactly how they used to build the mastabas. So it's smaller bricks, but they're made out of limestone instead of the old
Or
mastabas.
it's bigger bricks.
They're about the same size as they
Oh.
would have been building.
Oh, okay, okay. So it's the same. It's the same architectural design, blown up larger.
Yes.
Are they using larger bricks, like in relation? Is that what you're saying?
No, they're just
Okay.
making them out of stone. The older bricks were made
Oh.
out of adobe. So
Oh,
they were
and
mud.
stone's a lot stronger.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because that's going to be a heavier thing that would like
Now,
fall in on
yeah,
itself.
well,
if it was made
and
of
also,
adobe.
and also the earlier mastabas actually were hollow. They were chambers to keep all like the burial offerings, and then the body was entombed in a shaft down below it.
Okay.
And so, but in this case, they're like that's not going to work because it'll collapse. So
So it's a lot less hollow.
yeah, except the tomb of Djoser is at the bottom of a like 20-meter shaft that drops down below the center of the pyramid. So it very much is just it's still that mastaba. It's just bigger and better.
But it is a shaft, so you could like rappel down in there.
Yes, and it's
Well,
like
and you need a shaft. As I recall from the Rosicrucian Museum, you need a shaft so that the soul can go out out for lunch,
little
or
window.
for a nighttime activities. and
yeah,
then come
yeah,
back again.
yeah. The soul has to leave, and then it has to come back in the daytime to return to the body to be rejuvenated. Otherwise, if the body is destroyed, then the soul dies too.
So all these mastabas and pyramids have little windows in them that the soul can go through.
So this is such a feat. I mean, so when they build this, at the same time, Stonehenge is getting its stones.
Wow.
So, like,
that gives you some perspective.
Because Stonehenge had been
wow.
around for a very long time in different forms. Like earlier, there was a wood henge.
There were a lot of henges around,
Yeah,
right?
but when it's I think this is the same time when it's getting its most famous blue stones. Is at the same time.
I see.
So like that just gives you an idea of how fucking old
That's
this pyramid
amazing.
is.
Wow.
They're so impressed by it because it's also like the first major thing built out of stone in Egypt. That Imhotep is deified and made into a god.
The architect.
The architect.
All right. So you can move on up in this culture. If you,
Yeah.
if you do something cool enough, you can become a god.
Yes.
Good for him.
So a few generations later, that was in the third dynasty. Now we're in the fourth dynasty. There's this guy named Sneferu, and he decides, I want what Djoser had, but I want it smooth.
This is the beginning of the smooth-sided pyramid.
Yes.
Okay.
So what they do is they also
How do you do that?
They change the base. It now becomes a square.
Oh, wow.
He starts building one up, and the angle is too steep, and the whole thing collapses.
Oh no.
And he was actually building. It looks like he was building it around a core. So they built like a more solid core, and then they did all these little things around it.
That's what I would think is if you want to do a smooth pyramid, you just build a step pyramid and then put rocks that are at 45-degree angles on the outside to just smooth it out. Like decoration.
So that one collapses, and so he says, "Okay, well, let's try it again." And so they start building one again, and then they get to a certain point, and they realize, "Oh no, it's too steep; it's going to collapse." So they then just like lessen the angle.
They're already halfway up it, and then they just make it a shallower angle.
And so this is what we call the bent pyramid because it looks bent. And then he's like, no. Third time's the charm. Build me another one. And this time they nail it. And
they figure out the perfect angle.
Yeah, it's actually still a shallower angle than the Great Pyramids are going to have later. So it looks a little bit squat and wide, but it didn't tip over. And this one they call the Red Pyramid. It's made out of like a red stone.
So do we know all about all of these proto-Great Pyramids because they're around still?
They're still there.
That's so, I mean, that must be a dream for an archaeologist because so often you have to infer things, but it's like, oh no, you have all of these previous examples, so you can just like look at one, look at the next,
Yeah, exactly.
and you have like the evolution of the pyramid there.
Yeah, we have the evolution from pit grave to mastaba to step pyramid to true pyramid.
Are they all kind of in the same area or all around Egypt?
I believe Djozer's is the furthest south.
Okay.
The pyramids, the 3 pyramids of Sneferu are all built next to each other, and they're about 10 miles south of Giza.
Those are the Great Pyramid. Oh no, the Sneferu.
Sneferu is the development. Those are the prototypes.
And Giza is the big ones, the
Yeah,
ones
the big
you all
ones.
see, the
Yes,
famous ones.
yes,
right outside of Cairo.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So Sneferu then is actually, it's all a pyramid building dynasty after him, because I think the Great Pyramid is built by Khufu or for Khufu, and he I think is either the son or the grandson of Sneferu.
Oh, okay. So really, they're spending all this time on these big projects. Like, this is my tomb, and they're spending their whole lives making their own tomb or getting other people to make their tomb for them.
Yeah. So whereas Djoser had Imhotep as his architect, Khufu has this guy Hemiunu. Hemiunu. And Hemiunu also, we have a statue of Hemiunu, and it is like the most atypical. It doesn't look like the rest of Egyptian statues. It actually is like.
He doesn't have a bird head and is holding a.
Well, no, it's just done in a much more realistic style to the point where he has man boobs, dude.
Oh, wow. Well, I got to look this up.
Yeah,
Hemiunu. Okay.
Hemiunu. Hemiunu.
Hemiunu. Hemiunu. Look at that. Yeah, very realistic.
Right?
He's got man boobs. Yeah,
He's got man boobs.
He's not just. I mean, he's got some boobs.
Some nice moves.
Yeah. Good for you, Hemiunu.
So Hemiunu is tasked with this. He's like, Khufu says, "Hey, I want the biggest pyramid ever. Like, make this happen." Now,
Yeah, it's a good start. Make it bigger,
right?
Yeah, it's definitely big, all right. I just wonder if it's too big, you know?
Yeah, it's big, but is it too
Is
big?
it too big? Are they going to remember me or the pyramid?
But sire, we made it to your exact specifications.
Too exact, if you ask me. Tear it down and try again, but this time don't embarrass yourselves.
So they could learn from all the mistakes of Sneferu's pyramids, including one was that, like, even though they nailed the Red Pyramid, it's still built on sand.
Oh, geez. yeah, that's right. They're on sand. Oh,
Yeah.
no. What are they going to
So
do?
Hemiunu says, well, let's fix that. We need a foundation.
Okay.
And so he knows he needs a foundation. He needs building materials. And like they calculate how many blocks they're going to need before they even start, basically.
Okay.
And he's like, I need stuff that's going to provide everything I need to do this. So while searching around, they come to the Giza Plateau, which is a plateau of limestone.
Is it like a quarry?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. But it has quarry potential.
Yes.
This plateau.
And it
could
sticks
be a
up
quarry.
above the Nile River.
Nice.
At this time, the Nile River had a different course because the Aswan Dam, which was built in the 1950s, altered the flood path of the Nile.
Oh.
So at this time, the Nile goes right up to the bottom of this plateau.
Mm-hmm.
So it's right there.
Nice.
And
so that's like good for, well, trade and stuff goes
we're
along
also
with
bringing
water.
in materials.
Okay.
Now,
Yes.
this spot also conveniently already has something that is noteworthy, which is a natural stone formation that kind of looks like a lion.
Oh.
This would later become the Sphinx.
Okay.
It seems that also that group that brought that came in from across the Sahara, they also might have been worshiping these similar rock features that are out in the desert. There are things they're like the hoodoos that you saw at Bryce Canyon.
Oh, yeah.
They're very much like hoodoos, but they also all kind of look like lions. And so there might be some kind of like, they might have been worshiping these things or altering them to make them look like lions. Anyway, that is already conveniently at this location.
Excellent. How could they not make a sphinx out of that?
Yeah. And then, so the first step is that they level a foundation for where the pyramid will be built. So they pick a spot.
They're not building up rocks to get to level. They're carving
Yes,
into
they basically
ground.
carve a giant shelf.
Wow.
And they get it that is 13 acres square. That is about the size of 7 New York City blocks.
Wow.
And across that entire area, the deviation of level is less than 1 inch.
That's crazy. How did
With
They
basic
didn't
tools.
have lasers.
With basic tools. There's a few ideas on how they did this, all involving basic stone, like Bronze Age technology. The plumb bob is one, which is
Right.
just using gravity and a
that's
string.
just a string dangling, so you can get
and
what's
if you
vertical.
know that the lengths of the legs are identical, then you can just it's high centered on this side. Just keep chipping away until everything.
man.
Yeah, it's very labor intensive.
They must have just gridded it out and then been like,
Another idea is that they might have somehow constructed like a little lake there and flooded it and then looked at the water level and then marked the water level.
Yeah, if you were to make it into a sandbox, so to speak, without sand in it, but with like a little rim and pour water in, that actually seems like the best way. That's really smart.
You could also just attempt that with a smaller basin of water as a water level that you just have there and you set on the thing. And just
That's how I would
hard
do
work.
it.
Hard work.
Yeah.
All done with copper chisels and I think it's dolerite boulders.
Well,
hammer
hard
stones.
work, and I'm sure they had a lot of people, a lot of
Yes.
manpower, but that's a lot of organization too.
Yeah. Also, this foundation, as well as the pyramid that is eventually built on top of it, is aligned just 1 degree off of true north.
Wow. Okay. So they knew where north was.
Yeah, and how they did this is actually very interesting.
I would think, well, the North Star wasn't the North Star thousands of years ago because of precession. So they'd have to kind of work it out based on where all the other stars are moving. But
it's
I don't
not
know.
that hard if you just know this how the sun moves east to west.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
But
that would be actually probably a better way.
the
to
best
do it.
way is, and this has been tested by researchers at the University of Amsterdam, is that if you go on the fall equinox and just stick a stick in the ground and you mark the precession of the shadow throughout the day, it makes a straight line that runs east-west.
Mm-hmm.
So the midpoint of that would be north. But here's the thing. If you do it that way, it ends up being off by 1 degree.
Okay. So yeah, in that case, that would definitely prove that's how they did it. I wonder why it's even off by 1 degree. That's interesting.
And then they, just because of the tilt of the earth, I guess.
I don't think that's it. Anyway, whatever.
And then
using
using ropes, they could stretch out a perimeter, and you just used simple geometry.
Mm-hmm.
We know that they did this thing with the ropes because they have in later tombs there are depictions of what it was called the rope stretching ceremony, where it depicts images of them building things. And the first step is there's 2 guys who look very official who are holding a piece of rope between them, almost like a photo op. And it very much is like the equivalent of cutting the ribbon or the first shovel in the ground for now, because these were public works. Like you
I
already
love the
hinted
idea
at.
that rope pulling and stretching is this whole thing all the laborers do, and then the pharaoh comes out and everyone applauds and he does a little rope stretching and they all applaud. Then he goes back up in his tower and then they get back to work.
Yeah, it's the symbol of the thing that counts. It's not
That's
so much
great.
the actual thing. But yeah, like you were saying, you need a lot of people and there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into this. So the misconception was, as you also said earlier, that this was done by slaves.
Right. I'd like to know more about that.
It is not done by slaves.
Okay.
I mean, some people might consider it a form of slavery, but the point is, this was actually a form of taxation. Every citizen in Egypt was required to do a certain amount of time of like conscripted service to some kind of task.
Okay, so it's kind of like it's conscription. Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It was
it
was for a limited amount of time.
These
about
were
4 months.
lifetime slaves who were owned in the sense that we think of slavery now.
Yeah,
Or maybe it was in some ways, but not others.
No, well, so here's the thing: is that it's an agrarian society. Everybody's farming.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are 4 months out of the year in which no farming can happen at all because of the floods.
Yeah, the Nile floods every year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have 4 months where all these people who would otherwise be occupied farming can't. We got to keep them busy. Otherwise, they're going to just drink all the barley beer they've got, and they're going to get restless.
Yeah,
so let's give them something to do.
Oh, you can't just give people days off. They're left to their own devices. It's going to be terrible. No, keep them busy.
So that guarantees you that you have an expanded workforce for at least 4 months out of the year.
Yeah, they are available to work,
Yeah.
I guess is what it comes
But we
down
do
to.
know that
Okay.
construction on the pyramid did go year-round. But there's 4 months out of the year where you have an extra workforce.
Okay.
And it's, more pleasant. It's probably not as hot as the summer to do this work.
That's true.
We have actually excavated the villages and the settlements that the workers stayed in while they were working.
Mm-hmm.
And it appears there are buildings that are very much like barracks. So they had housing.
Yeah, think of all the infrastructure
Yes.
needed.
There's
'Cause-
bakeries. They even
Wow.
have the molds that the loaves of bread were made in. There's butchering that's happening. There used to be this misconception that they were only fed bread and beer.
Oh,
Now
okay.
Egyptian beer is not like your Bud Light or whatever of today. This is like liquid bread. Like it has all the carbohydrates and the calories and the salt.
They chewed their beer back,
and then
back in the day.
mix that and then bread. So it's like a very carb heavy diet.
Yeah.
But we now know that in addition to that, they were eating a lot of meat.
Were they fishing a lot? I mean, the Nile's right there.
Well, you're getting fish from the Nile, but there are actually a lot of beef and goat and sheep.
Mm-hmm.
Now, researchers have actually crunched the numbers to figure out, well, how many people would have to be tied up just tending livestock to make the pyramid happen. It is about 2,000 people who are just raising the animals and butchering the animals to feed everybody.
It's one of those things whenever you have a great big project that involves a lot of people. Sure, you have all the laborers and you do that calculation, but then there's how do you feed them? How do you all of the other people that you need just to have those people to work?
And that conscripted service, which also did happen year round, but like I said, you had more people available in that 4 month window, but everybody was expected to go and do a term of service on this project, but not all of them were doing heavy labor.
That's the
some
thing.
of them are repairing. Like you got to clothe them. People need clothing repair.
Everybody can be involved and do something.
Yeah,
to contribute.
exactly. Somebody's out there tending the flocks.
That's kind of
There's people
cool.
who are sharpening the chisels and who are just in charge of taking care of tools. There's so much involved in this.
You have overseers and people who are checking on the work to make sure.
Yes, and that's the thing that we know. We actually have the name of one of these people who is checking the work. This would be
Quality control.
This is Mirror. This is a thing called the Diary of Mirror. It's a work log that was done by a civil servant in the 27th year of Khufu's reign.
Wow.
I think it's a period of time from, I want to say like July through November of that year.
This is the off season because all the workers are farming right now.
It is the oldest papyri with text on it found in Egypt. It was found in 2013. From this, we also know that the original name of the pyramid, they called it Akhet Khufu, which means the horizon of Khufu.
Or the sunset of Khufu.
Maybe.
Yeah, the end.
So, he is recording blocks that are being brought in that are a fine limestone that are going to be the casing stones for the pyramid. And so from this, we know that they were bringing in about because it was like he marks down where they're going to get the casing stones, because the rest of the pyramid is built out of stone that's quarried on site.
But the casing stones are special.
They're special. They're extra special lime. It's a higher quality limestone.
Are they going? Are they like the walls of the interior of the catacomb, or not the catacomb, but of the where does the casing stone live in the pyramid?
Outside.
Oh,
it's a case.
This is the shell.
Yes,
the exterior wall of the pyramid.
Yeah. The pyramid itself is built out of 3 main materials.
But you want to make the really nice stones, the showy stones. That makes sense.
Yeah, and so there's like the limestone that they're quarrying less than 300 meters away from where the pyramid is built. And those stones are just like...
They're filler.
Yeah,
no one's going to see them. They just need to be strong.
The other stuff is coming from, I think, about 30 miles away.
Wow.
And based on his log, we know that they were able to transport 200 of those stones a month.
Okay.
The other material that is used in the pyramid are these giant blocks of granite that weigh up to 15 tons that come from Aswan, which is hundreds of miles to the south. Mm-hmm. But the Nile runs northwards.
That's right, yeah. So this is a river that actually flows
north
to the north and empties into the Mediterranean.
Yes.
Right.
So they build barges and they float it down. Hemiunu, one of the first steps, the second step he did after they cleared that big shelf, is they made an artificial harbor. He built a canal.
Wow.
That directed water into a little...
Yeah. You want to get water as close to the pyramid base as possible, because you're going to be floating giant boulders and rocks.
From this little harbor, you have stone ramps or causeways that run right from the water level.
Wow.
In fact, the water actually goes up them, like kind of like a boat launch that you would see today. Mm-hmm. And it runs straight to the pyramids. Each one.
Now, one of the big questions, and I think one of the reasons people think that aliens did it, is how did they lift the big rocks on to make the pyramid? People can't lift things that heavy, Cody.
Well, they can when you got a whole bunch of people.
Okay.
And they were able to put them onto large cedar sleds. Now, there is a burial tomb from much later in Egypt's history, but it is for another, mid-level civil servant. Mm-hmm. Member of the bureaucrat.
Everybody got a tomb.
Yes.
Not only the pharaohs, but they got.
But the wealthy people, the wealthier you were, the better your tomb.
Yeah.
And in this one, there is a depiction of a statue of the individual being moved, and we know that this statue exists. They have found it. The statue it weighs 85 tons.
Oh my gosh.
Right. But in his tomb, there is a picture of them moving the statue into place. It is on the sled.
And it shows how they did it.
It's being pulled by 175 workers.
Wow.
But curiously, there's one dude who's standing on the sled, and he's pouring water in front of the sled.
Oh.
Now,
just slicking the
experiments
ground?
have been done. And actually, you know what? I think this was the experiment that was done by the University of Amsterdam. I misspoke before.
Okay.
But this one was Amsterdam, and they wanted to see levels of moisture in sand and how that affected pulling weights across it.
Okay.
And they found that with as little as 10% moisture, it takes the amount of force required to move these large stones would be cut by 30%.
So there's a magic amount of water. So this guy was actually a very skilled water pourer. He had to put just the right amount in front of the sled for maximum slipperiness.
And I imagine it's kind of like a bucket brigade where they are just passing containers.
I bet, alongside. Because if they have a rhythm going, they're not going to want to stop.
But we know that they were doing this. They are pulling them on sleds across. It's not log rollers.
That's funny you brought that up. I was about to suggest that's what I would do.
Across sand. They would just sink into the sand, Garth.
That's true. Sleds are where
it's
at.
Right?
Yeah. But then, so that's how they get it to go horizontally. How do they go up?
Ramps.
Okay.
Okay, so
ramps made of sand?
Let's back up.
Okay.
A little bit. First of all, how are they cutting these blocks out of the
that's actually a good question. Chisels, I guess.
Chisels and long copper saws, but they're not saws like we would think of. They are actually kind of flat, but they're adding sand as an abrasive. So the copper is just moving sand.
And the copper with the sand can cut stone.
Not just limestone. They have done experiments where this is done with the granite.
But these saws don't have teeth. It's
No.
just a sharp edge.
It's just friction.
Like and then they pour water and sand?
Yeah, aggregate and lubrication, and then the copper is a soft metal that then basically it turns into sandpaper. It's like a metal sandpaper equivalent.
Yeah, you don't want anything that's too soft to metal though, because it'll just not.
Now we know that they were using copper for the chisels and the saw blades, and that the copper is being traded. They are getting it from on the other side of the Nile. This is all on the western side of the Nile.
Oh, okay. Got it.
And it's actually coming from maybe as far away as like the Levant and Israel are getting this
Levant?
The Levant.
I don't know if that's the right pronunciation.
But they are getting. That's where they're getting this copper from.
So they are trading with Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
We knew that they've been doing that for a long time already. It's where they were getting their grain seeds.
That may come up a bit in a proto Garth's Corner that I'll be doing before the real Garth's Corner.
The blocks that they are cutting, the filler blocks, weigh on average 2.5 tons each. Mm-hmm. And there are over 2 million of them involved in building the Great Pyramid. Mm-hmm. I think that somebody crunched the numbers, and it was like a block would have to be cut and stacked. Like there'd have to be a constant stream of blocks. It was like every so many minutes, 365 days a year, to get this done in about 20 some odd years.
Wow, what a thing! I'm.
Yeah.
I'm just really impressed that they got that done. I look at like a lot of our big projects that, it takes forever to build a highway on-ramp these days. And that's good because there are, workers' rights and unions and other things. But boy, that's efficient, man.
It's very efficient. It might have been accomplishable with as few as 25,000 people.
That's crazy. Wow. Amazing.
So we know pretty much everything about how this was done, to the point where there are blocks inside the pyramid that we have, you find inscriptions where it's the name of the work crew.
That's great.
Who was responsible for cutting it and placing it. So they worked in crews. So you had workers.
And they signed their names or something.
Yeah. So it's also you get like a few guys who are working together. That's your crew. You start developing like camaraderie, and you work more efficiently that way too.
Like
much like horses.
Like a platoon, or like horses. Well, I was just thinking about that. So people were dragging this.
Yes.
It wasn't beasts of burden.
No.
You'd think you'd be getting oxen and whatever.
They could have, but no. For the most part, it's people. The big mystery that we have, though, like the one thing that we know 99.9% about how this was accomplished. The one thing that is the question is what did the ramps look like? There's a few different ideas. Was it a one long straight ramp? Was it a zigzag of ramps, or was it a ramp that went along it? There was even an idea that there was an interior ramp that they
And what was the ramp made of?
Other stones, rubble packed in.
Okay, so packed rubble. That would because it couldn't be sand. That would just fall. It couldn't be wood. That's not strong enough.
And if you had if it was one long straight, there's the idea that you have to maintain a specific pitch. There's a maximum pitch. Otherwise, over that, it's too hard for people to lift. Too steep, right?
Yeah.
And I think the magic number was like 12% grade or something like that.
That's pretty impressive. It doesn't sound like a lot, but 12% is, if you're driving a car up 12%, you're feeling it. Yeah.
So if they did one long ramp, it would have to be over 2 miles wide, which means it's either going way out into the desert or it's going into the middle of the Nile.
The zigzag seems like a reasonable
zigzag. And it could be a combination of zigzagging and then... So here's the thing also about building a pyramid like this. Once you get it's a job that gets easier as you go up because you need less material to move as it goes up.
That's true.
And by the time you're like a third of the way up in height, you're more than half the way done in material.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I wonder, do the stones get a little smaller the higher up you go?
No, they use the same one's size.
Wow.
But recently... there was an excavation at a quarry site elsewhere in Egypt where they found that they actually could get steeper inclined planes than we thought. Oh. There is a ramp that's intact, and this ramp has steps on either side of a slope. So you have like
a smooth chute in the
middle, stairs on either side. And then there's post holes too. So they could like tie off to posts and leave it and like or even use those posts, run ropes around them, and now you've got like kind of like a pulley.
Oh, and you can have leverage. So they're not just pulling themselves; they're like sticking a thing in the ground and then using these rods tied to ropes.
So
to
we
just
know,
pull a little.
Yes, we know that they could get ramps that are even steeper than we originally thought.
Wow. What ingenuity.
And then once they built to the top, they worked their way down, but as they worked and dismantled the ramps, but as they went down, they were then encasing it in that those capstones.
Right.
Which kind of makes the spiral pyramid make kind of more sense, spiral ramp more sense, because as you're going down, you're working your way around and capping it.
That would, yeah. So it makes sense to have a semi-permanent spiraling ramp all the way around, just going up and up and up.
So yeah, they do that, and then there's various other things that are associated with the pyramid. There's a whole complex. So each of the 3 Great Pyramids. Mm-hmm. So you got the one we just talked about.
There's the little one, and then there's 2 big ones.
So the biggest one is Khufu. That's the one we just talked about. Then his son Khafre is like, I'm gonna build a pyramid, but it's not gonna be as big as Dad's. Respect. But that one is where the Sphinx is associated with. And the face of the Sphinx is believed to be the pharaoh Khafre.
Oh, okay.
So the Sphinx is not unique in the sense that there were a lot of, it's a guardian imagery. There's a lot of these things that were put at other tombs and
the Sphinx
sacred sites.
Is a chimera that is like,
and we don't, and they didn't call it the Sphinx. The Sphinx is a Greek name for a similar creature.
Okay.
We don't know exactly what they called it. But it's associated with Khafre. But that most likely was an alteration of a pre-existing thing. Now, whether it was pre-existently fully carved lion, or it was just that this is the stone formation that looks kind of lion-like, is up to debate.
Yeah. And then there's a little.
Then there's a smaller
pyramid there too.
Yeah, a smaller one, and that was built by Menkaure, who is Khufu's grandson. And then that's kind of it for like the main big pyramid. I mean, there's other pyramids on the site that are, there's smaller ones that are like assumed to be where maybe queens were buried. Also, all around them are thousands of mastabas. They're still building mastabas. Like, not everybody can have a pyramid.
But everybody wants their little... Are all the mastabas in the same place?
They're all just around. It's a what we call a necropolis. It's a city of the dead, essentially.
Is that the Valley of... Isn't there a word for it?
No, that's the Valley of the Kings comes later.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So this is on Giza. Also, why the west side of the Nile? That's because in Egyptian cosmology, the west is the land of the dead, because that's where the sun sets, so it makes sense. But also, think of it this way. If part of their cultural influence was a group that came out of the west, then that really is the land of the dead. That's the past. That's where we came from. Our ancestors.
It's a metaphorical thing
as well.
Too.
Yeah, there's layers. Like the pyramid. There's layers.
An ogre is like a pyramid.
So that's a bunch about how it was built. They continue building pyramids to a lesser degree for a few hundred years more. I think it's a total of a 700-year period when pyramids are being built. And as I said, there's only like 50 that are still intact. It's because you can't keep building these giant work. They couldn't justify building giant pyramids
run out of
again.
Stone at some point.
Well, no, it's just that this example, these 3 pyramids really are kind of like, there's one researcher, Egyptologist, who said that we shouldn't be so concerned with how the Egyptians built the pyramids, but more how the pyramids built Egypt. And so there's a centralized government, there's a bureaucracy, all these things that have to exist to make such a thing work.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
Later, as we go into different dynasties, that kind of breaks down. And then it comes back. There's like, because again, this is thousands of years of time. So it's like there's ebbs and flows. Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of ins and outs and what have you.
Yeah.
So some of these pyramids that get built later are built out of inferior stone. Some go back to this idea of like, well, let's just build a pile of rubble and then do casings on the outside. And these casings are still that limestone that's real shiny.
There's probably hipster Egyptians who want to do it the old school way.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't need any of these smooth sides. We're going to do it like they did hundreds of years ago.
And
styles change.
The Great Pyramids and these other pyramids that were covered in this limestone casing, those were stripped in antiquity. Like, that stone was pirated and taken away.
Right. I always heard that the very tops of the pyramids had gold.
The very
So
top.
that would have been stolen, I'm sure.
Well,
at some point.
they were actually covered. It was a capstone that was then coated in sheets of this amalgam that's called electrum, which is an amalgam of silver and gold.
Ooh, that's even shinier.
Yeah,
Nice.
and the caps are missing on them, and they used to be a little bit taller. That Great Pyramid of Khufu remained the tallest man-made structure on Earth until the 11th century A.D.
Wow.
Or Common Era, when I think it's the
Leaning Tower of Pisa.
No, it's the cathedral of the Lincoln Cathedral in England.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
And they finally got taller than the pyramid.
Yeah. But that's like a spire that's on top of something. So does it really count?
Yeah, you can't build a building and then put a little pole at the top and say, "Oh, it's this much."
Yeah, but
taller.
think about that. It's something that stood as the tallest man-made structure on Earth for over 4,000 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Out of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the pyramids of Giza are the last ones standing. Everything else was destroyed or lost.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we'll talk a little bit more about the features of these pyramids as we go into some of the theories. But first,
We're
digging for bones.
Digging for the bones. Digging for mummified bones with flesh on them. Because they're mummified.
I gotta use the bathroom.
What was that laugh? I asked myself. I'm trying to recreate that as much as possible. I don't think I've ever laughed like that in my life. That was new. What is that? This is my new laugh for 2024. New Year, new laugh.
We have a spanking new podcast for your ear holes called Doom Generation.
Available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Later, Doomers.
Do you like beer?
Of course you do.
Do you like good food?
You better believe it.
Then we have the show for you.
It's the Hoppy Trails Podcast.
I'm Nick.
I'm Travis. And on each episode of Hoppy Trails, we invite you to come along on our journey to explore craft beverages and the foods that accompany them.
Check out Hoppy Trails on hoppytrailspod.com or listen wherever you find your podcasts. Connect with us on Instagram at hoppytrailspod or reach out to hoppytrailspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Come travel the Hoppy Trails with us, and remember to always say yes to the hoppy ending.
Cheers!
Well, boy, we didn't find any mummified bones, but we did find some good old-fashioned bones you've heard already. So hope you enjoyed that, and welcome back to the Pyramid Talk.
Those bones were antiques.
They were, that's right. Welcome back to Pyramid Talk with Cody and Garth.
Well, before we begin again, I wanted to take a moment to shout out Trans Lifeline again.
Oh, yes, in the middle of the episode.
Yeah.
People will hear it that way.
Yeah.
If you need somebody to talk to, times are weird.
Yeah, times are getting
people,
weirder,
yes.
and it's stressful. And so if you are somebody who is trans and you need somebody to talk to, there's the Trans Lifeline. You can go to translifeline.org, or you can call, if you're in the United States, 877-565-8860. We are not associated with them. They do not endorse us, but we think it's just a resource that we want to put out there in the world.
Right on.
Right on. Where were we? Ah, yes.
Well, we were in ancient Egypt, Cody. We hadn't taken the backwards carousel of time, but somehow we
that
were
would have been
there.
the furthest back we'd ever gone.
Oh.
And I don't want to get stuck there.
No, it's a good thing we
You're
didn't
never
do the
going to find a
backwards carousel
little,
of time.
you'll never find some.
We'd end up in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
But you're also, the likelihood of finding a robotic children's toy to fix it afterwards is just non-existent. So many steps that have to happen in between. Okay, theories about the pyramids.
Oh, I have a theory.
Yeah?
I think that they were built just to be just for Dark Side of the Moon. I think that the Egyptians were anticipating one of the greatest albums ever made, and they figured that'd be some good iconography that would be inspirational to the band Pink Floyd. And
Time travel.
So their love of the future music of Pink Floyd led them to create these great works.
Ah, wow.
Yep.
Didn't Pink Floyd actually play a show at the Great Pyramids of Giza?
They probably did. They played one at Pompeii. I'm sure they must have. Yeah, they told.
I might be thinking of
I'm just going to
Pompeii.
go out there and say they did.
Okay.
At some point they did.
So, people have been impressed by the pyramids for a very long time and wanted to know how it was done and why for a very long time, going all the way back to Herodotus. So, at the time of Herodotus,
I'll bet it went all the way back to the time when they just finished the pyramid.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
the next
here's the
day.
thing is-
How did we do that?
Here's the thing is Herodotus, yeah, they were like truthers.
Yeah. 5 years later, you know what really built the pyramids? I did. No.
No, man. It was a false flag operation.
What did
by the
Herodotus?
Hittites.
What did Herodotus think?
So Herodotus, he was a tourist. They were doing tourism already.
Oh.
So he went there on a tour.
He was a Greek dude, right?
Yeah, he's a Greek,
Yeah.
and he goes on tour. It's like, why do we have the 7 wonders of the ancient world? Because it was a fucking tour guide. It was like, hey, go see these things.
Tour of the ancient world.
Yeah, you think tourism's a new thing? No. So Herodotus goes there.
Of a Queen Mary.
Yeah. He's told that it was built by slaves. He's also told that Khafre was an evil, evil king that everybody hated.
Oh, okay.
And that he sold his daughter into prostitution to pay for building the pyramids.
It's the only way that the pharaoh could pay
but
for
if you're building it with slaves, what do you got to pay anyone for, man? Just take it. You're the pharaoh. You're the god. Because the pharaoh, lest we forget, and we kind of glossed over that. Why would a bunch of people be convinced to do this thing when your head of state is also considered a living god in the head of your religion as well? You can get some shit done.
Yeah, Kim Jong-un could build a pyramid if he wanted to.
He did.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Well, it's pyramid shaped. It's a fucking hotel that's empty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. So even in antiquity, they're trying to figure this out. And then once you get into colonialism.
Oh, wow. We're going way back toward the present here.
A lot of the mosques that are in Cairo, because, over time, Egypt
Egypt is Islamic now.
Became an Islamic nation. So when that's happening, they build a lot of the mosques in Cairo out of the shiny limestone casings.
Actually, that happens a lot. Ancient Rome was pilfered to build a lot of those temples in.
Cathedrals, St. John's Cathedral,
exactly.
and so forth. But also, they took the stones off the thing, but they didn't destroy them completely, which is kudos to them. Unlike, later you had, the Taliban who blew up the Buddhas.
Yeah,
which
that's just, let's just shit on everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very different intent there.
And even as an Islamic country today, Egypt is very much like, no, we're going to celebrate our past, these fairs and stuff, because it's money, it's tourism.
Yeah. That's
economic.
I like how your meaning went from very benevolent, yes, celebrating heritage to no, we can make a profit.
Yeah.
Well, it's both.
But
it's both.
From their very inception, those great pyramids were a money making scheme.
You know what? You're right. That's a good point.
The economy around building them helped Egypt flourish.
It was always cynical.
Yeah, and then it kept going. And then it becomes a tourism site, even in antiquity.
Yeah.
Then those early Islamic people that came in, one of them that's how the first tunnel that was broken into it.
Oh,
well,
okay.
Actually, it turns out it wasn't the first tunnel, because as it turns out, these things were raided in antiquity. Even within a few hundred years of them being built, they'd already been.
Oh, really? So,
yeah.
So these, because one of the things with the pyramids we didn't really get into was it was very hard to get to the king or to the treasure because of all these trapdoors and secret things. I guess they weren't very good, though. It sounds like people Indiana Jones their way into the middle of that.
Yeah, and you say trapdoors, don't think these are booby traps. No,
with
they're
spiders?
No. Although, for seemingly the burial chamber, there actually was some, we don't know exactly how they rigged this contraption, but there was a way that they were able to slide giant blocks into place behind them as they came out.
Whoa.
And those blocks were then tunneled through to get back in.
Amazing.
Yeah. So people were already interested but they knew they were tombs. And the idea was there's got to be a bunch of treasure in that thing.
Yeah,
right?
I would imagine. Mm-hmm. Look how big it is. There's got to be something.
So then you get to the 19th century. And there's this thing called pyramidology.
Is this Napoleon?
Well, Napoleon saw the pyramids.
I know, yeah.
He did not shoot the nose off of the Sphinx. That is a myth.
Okay.
The Sphinx's nose was broken even in antiquity.
Right. Okay.
Again, that's such a good word. Antiquity. So
say what you want about Napoleon. He didn't shoot the nose off the Sphinx.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
But no, some of the earliest Egyptologists are French because of Napoleon.
Oh, okay.
And so you get into pyramidology, which is all the various ways that non-Egyptians have tried to figure out what the Egyptians were up to.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So early on, there's like this idea that, I mean, there's so many to go into.
Pick your favorites.
Okay, so there's this idea of that the measurements of the pyramid mean something.
Oh, kind of like so like the ratios of height to
So one idea is that it all adheres to the golden ratio.
Uh-huh.
And it turns out it's within the margin of error for the golden ratio, but that seems to be a coincidence of geometry.
Okay.
It's just like that's just how things sometimes work out.
Well,
that's why it's a golden ratio.
I was going to say
right?
something about the golden ratio makes it pop up unprovoked. like it does pop up a lot in nature.
And again, if you're stacking stone in a pyramid,
I'm sure there's some golden ratios that you come up with without meaning to. Yeah.
But then there's this idea of like this mythical cubit. They start looking at like the measurements and counting them up.
Isn't that the unit they used for the ark that the animals got on in the Old Testament?
Yeah.
The cubits.
Well, now we do know that there was an Egyptian cubit, but this is something else. They're trying to find like that there is some kind of sacred number, the sacred cubit. And it's numerology that they get into, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, at some point somebody's like, hey, if you measure the side of the pyramid in British inches, imperial inches.
Great start. Okay.
Right? It adds up to interesting numbers.
Okay.
Right? And this is still going on today. So
how do you know where the bottom of the pyramid is? Because sand keeps building up.
Well, I mean, you uncover as far as you can go.
Okay.
To the bedrock base, that foundation.
Oh, okay.
That was
fair,
that foundation.
Fair enough.
Right? Yeah.
So they come up with numbers using British inches. Okay.
Yeah, and one theory was that you could predict like it's a prophecy that like if you count every inch and assign that to a year and you count up in the it's a timeline, right?
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Just no.
Well, I mean, unless you're going to have interesting little drawings along the base, what would that timeline even indicate? Like, yeah.
Well, here's the thing: is that like in the 19th century, you have what's the Second Great Awakening, which is the proliferation of Protestant Christian movements in the United States and elsewhere.
Okay.
Which leads to eventually evangelicals.
Yeah, the tent. I remember going in the backwards carousel all the time to a tent revival. Yeah.
But this is even a little bit before that.
Okay.
And so they start saying that like the pyramid, they make the pyramids of Egypt a foundation piece of this revival, like where it's like, well, it was built by Israeli slaves.
Oh, right. In the Bible,
Jews.
Pharaoh, that's a whole thing.
Yeah. The Jewish slaves built the pyramids. And the pyramids, like you get other theories about like their role as what they really were for. And it's all biblical. And to the point where you have this guy, Charles Taze Russell in the 1890s, who says that the pyramids literally are the Bible in stone.
Did they really think that it was exclusively Jewish slaves that built the pyramids? Because, I mean, how many was that supposed to have been? A few thousand?
No, it's like the entire nation of Israel was taken into captivity.
Yeah, but it wasn't very many people back then. I don't know. It seems like you need more people than that to build the pyramids.
Well, as we said, you only need about 25,000 to build these pyramids.
I always imagined, I guess I don't know anything about religion.
Well,
really.
I guess that's 25,000.
But I always imagined that, like, to move people and, like, okay, then they were freed and then they wandered around the desert. Like, you couldn't have more than a few thousand. Otherwise, that's too many people.
That's why it's a miracle, Garth.
Oh, okay, you're right. Okay.
Manna from heaven.
Okay, so the Egyptian pyramids are a history lesson just by looking at them. That everything you need about the Bible is on the pyramids.
Yes, it's all hidden. It's similar to that, like that timeline is in there. You know, it's like, well, if you count this far up, there's an imperfection, and that's when Jesus.
Okay, so they're just looking at every surface of the pyramids and trying to find meaning in it. Okay,
I'm going to tie this to this thought that apparently, if you count up the feet in the side of the pyramid, it works out to the number that is the speed of light. But also
what?
But also
what?
Yeah, which is not true.
I don't even know how you would. Okay.
Then also, again, that would be in feet. But it's like, the Egyptians weren't using feet.
Right.
That wasn't a thing.
Are you telling me, Cody, that the Egyptians didn't have feet? Because I'm pretty sure.
Well, they were not using the imperial foot, so any
Oh,
measurements
I see what
based
you're
on that
saying.
wouldn't make sense. Other measurements that wouldn't make sense is also that apparently the latitude.
Ah.
The latitude of the Great Pyramid of Khufu is the same number. Like if you add up if you just lay out the digits as the speed of light.
This leads us to our first little step into Garth's proto corner. Welcome to the first of two.
A pyramid has many corners.
Yeah, I've got 3 corners, even though pyramids have 4 corners. Shit. I've got 3 Garth's corners.
5 corners.
Oh, I guess I meant
6
the
sides,
base.
5
Darn it.
corners.
Okay, fine. Anyway, this is the first of 2 little mini corners before we get to the real Garth's corner, and that is to do with the Great Pyramid of Giza's location relative to the speed of light. So, it's Garth's corner part 1. Oh yeah, it's Garth's corner part 1, the first corner of several corners in this one corner about pyramids. I looked this up on Snopes.com, and there's not a lot to it, so we'll just get into it, and I will tell you. All right, so in a vacuum, the speed of light is 299,792,458 meters per second. That's 299,792,458. The latitude of the Great Pyramid of Giza, if you work it out in decimal degrees, is 299,792,458, the exact same number of digits. Now that is a lot of digits, and that's 29 degrees north latitude. Coincidence, Cody?
Yes, because if I remember correctly, that lines of latitude does not actually run through the tip of the pyramid. It's just to the south of the center of the pyramid.
Well, that's because you knew the answer already. So, yes, technically that wouldn't be a coincidence if, in fact, that was exactly where the pyramid was. But as Cody just pointed out, it is not exactly where the pyramid is. The true latitude is 29.9972458 degrees, and it intersects the Great Pyramid of Giza. However, there's 2 things here. If a point of latitude is merely crossing the structure at any point, I put a lot of decimals in there, we're getting into like inches.
Yeah.
So, and the pyramid's big. So what part of the pyramid is at this exact latitude? So just the structure from one side to the other of the Great Pyramid of Giza is 29.98 or 29.97 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like pretty wide. You're talking about a decimal with 2 more digits. That's like not a very big coincidence is what it comes down to. So it is a coincidence because
also the Egyptians didn't have latitude and longitude lines. They weren't measuring the earth that way. And that whole system.
Yeah, latitude and longitude's based on like what, Greenwich?
Yeah, so based on British imperialism.
Yeah. So latitude and longitude, those numbers did not exist in the ancient world, nor would they have.
Yeah.
Like England? What?
Yeah, exactly. It is just a coincidence.
And even if you really want to go, okay, well, let's go to the exact same thing. If you want to go to the apex of the pyramid, we'll pick a point. That is 29.97 1750 degrees north, and that's not the number of the speed of light anyway. So yeah, it is a coincidence.
And then those
I have proved it.
Yes.
So don't anybody of you guys telling me that it has to do with the speed of light and latitude, because I just proved it.
And then there's people who try to they still bring up that like this measurement of the sides, like
I hadn't seen that.
But they'll also go from like inches, but then then if I count it in meters, it's this, and they keep switching measurements. And it's like, well, it can't be all of them.
Meters and feet do not add up. Okay.
So that's one of the things.
Okay.
Second, there's also this thing that's pyramid power.
Pyramid power. Is this where you put a pyramid on your head?
It comes from that.
George Costanza does that.
That comes from it.
Okay, yeah.
So pyramid power.
It's like a horgon?
It is very much like a horgon.
Okay.
So there's this guy in the 1930s. He's French. He's an ironmonger, which means he sells iron.
Okay.
And he's also really into pendulum dowsing. So it's like the dowsing rods, those little things you hold. But this is a pendulum that you swing around. And he's really into it. And while doing a remote viewing session where he's using the pendulum and just imagining things, he imagines a scenario that he then claims in a book that he actually experienced.
Well, he experienced the imagining of it. That counts.
But according to this, that he had been to the Great Pyramid of Khufu.
This is in his imagination.
Yeah, but he claims that like this really happened.
Okay, so he had an out-of-body experience in this vision. Oh, is
yes.
what he's saying. Got it. Okay.
Is that inside of the pyramid in the chamber, which we haven't even really talked about, how there's no pharaoh in there, right? He got the body's missing.
What?
Yeah.
Oh no,
the body's missing.
Cody, we got to get on this.
Sorry.
What are we gonna do?
Yeah, inside
that lead.
So inside the Great Pyramid of Khufu, there are no inscriptions related to the afterlife, but there, as I said, that we do find inscriptions of work crew names on blocks, and that there is seemingly the chambers are empty. That's because they were raided in antiquity. That's why there's nothing in there. But according to this guy, I
was about to say the pharaoh must be rolling over in his grave, but he's not. He's not in his grave.
But maybe wait. Here's the kind of a thing. He might actually still be in that pyramid. More on that later.
Oh, okay.
So he says he went to the pyramid, and inside of the king's chamber, there's 3 chambers. There's one that's underground, kind of like the Mastabas had one underground.
Yeah.
There's a middle one, and then there's one really high up. The reason for this is that they might have been used for different purposes. Like one might have been a queen buried in there. One might have been that there was a statue or some kind of metaphorical thing, offerings and stuff. It also might be that as you're building the pyramid, you don't know when the pharaoh is going to die. So you just build, redundant chambers until you get to the one you want. So you can store him there for a while.
Oh, I see what
we
you're
can
saying.
store him here while we still finish building the pyramid.
And if he dies too quickly, we'll just bury him here. But if we have enough time, we'll build another place.
There's many reasons why there's multiple chambers. But anyway, he's in the king's chamber, and there's a dead cat in there.
Oh.
And and somebody tells some workmen, "Hey, get that dead cat out of here." And they go, "Well, that dead cat has actually been here a very long time without decaying."
Oh, magical cat.
So from that,
it must be a saint cat, because a lot of saints don't decay correctly either. Oh.
So from this little daydream he has, he concludes that the shape of a pyramid naturally has preservative properties, and the reason they built
anything that dies in a pyramid won't rot.
Because at this point also they weren't, I guess, entirely sure how mummies were made entirely. Like, we didn't know all the steps of the process.
Oh, okay.
So there's some fucking armchair archaeologists who are like, maybe
something about the shape.
They built this thing and put the body in there, and that's what preserved it.
I'm gonna guess this dowsing rod guy built himself a giant pyramid to live in. Is that what happened?
No.
Okay.
He starts building smaller pyramids to test his theory.
Oh.
And it turns out the material doesn't matter what you build them out of, because he's building them out of cardboard. It's the shape. It's the shape that is sacred and makes it happen.
So, okay, if you were to actually test this theory, which is always worth doing, you would take some fresh fruit and spread it evenly between...
The Mythbusters did this.
A cardboard pyramid and a cardboard cube, and then a control which has nothing. And then see what happens.
Yeah, so the Mythbusters did an episode where they tested the pyramid power, because the claims were that not only would things not rot, or they would rot at a slower rate. The other idea was that if you aligned these pyramids with north, and you put a razor blade in there, the razor blade would stay sharp, or if it was a dull blade, it would sharpen itself.
Oh, like so the metal would
because of magnetism.
The magnetism, yeah. I want a magnetic sharpener.
Sure, in 1949, Czechoslovakian Karel Durbel applied for a patent for, quote, Pharaoh's shaving device, a model pyramid that would maintain the sharpness of razor blades.
Okay, so you put your razor in the pyramid when you're done using it.
This is from the original patent, number 91304.
I want a pencil holder that's a pyramid shape.
Quote, the method of maintaining the razor blades and straight razor blades sharp by placing them in the magnetic field in such a way that the sharp edge lies in the direction of the magnetic lines. And of course, it was shaped like a pyramid. So then, you get into New Age people later who...
that's the head, put the pyramid on your head people.
To organize your thoughts. Yeah, there's a book that is written in the 70s that is called Pyramid Power that talks about this. So yeah, the idea is that it's the shape of the pyramid alone
that sharpens and de-ages
and preserves
and organizes.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff, man.
Bullshit. Right?
I love it.
Bullshit.
I love it.
There's also there was this idea that it was the Atlanteans who built it.
Why is it always the Atlanteans?
Racism.
they just keep coming up. No, the Egyptians couldn't have done this. There's
no way. Yeah, they needed the Atlanteans.
The Atlanteans were the real
And this
builders.
is the thing that Graham Hancock is into, is that ultimately he's pushing that there was some, he doesn't, maybe not calling them Atlanteans, but they're Atlanteans. Some ancient, super advanced civilization that helped do this. And part of his evidence is that, all these depictions of supernatural beings are holding purses. Look it up.
Really?
Yeah. They have these magic handbags that's a symbol of their office. And that they were the Atlantean sages. And they're responsible for everything. Everything. Going as far back to Göbekli Tepe, which is a ancient Stone Age site in Turkey. Yeah. It's all fucking Atlanteans. But maybe it was Atlanteans, or maybe it was aliens. Now we're going to get into the aliens.
Okay. Aliens. Maybe it's aliens. Why not?
Well, see, for starters, the pyramids aren't just lined up with latitude that's special. They're also lined up with the stars.
Oh, is it time for Garth's second corner?
They're lined up with Orion.
Oh, it's the second Garth's corner. The second Garth's corner in a triad of corners. So many corners, 3. And they're all Garth's corners about pyramids. This is the Orion correlation theory corner, everybody. I looked into this because I had heard a little bit about this. The idea, if you look at the 3 pyramids of Giza from above, they're kind of in a straight line, but with a little. They're not quite straight.
One's off the line.
They're off in a similar way to Orion's belt. If you're familiar with the constellation of Orion, he's got a belt made of 3 stars, and the stars are pretty closely lined up in such a way that they're notable. And it's no surprise that it became part of a constellation because it's an interesting shape just to see stars lined up like that. But they're not quite. They're just a little bit off.
Yeah.
Pyramids are in the same way. So that was an idea here. So I looked into this, and so the stars of Orion were, back in the day, apparently associated with Osiris, the god of rebirth and the afterlife in ancient Egypt. And the Orion constellation theory was first put forward by Robert Bauval. I think this was in the 80s or 90s. It's pretty recent. He noticed that Mintaka, which is the dimmest star in Orion's belt, was the one that's slightly off of the others. And if you look at the Great Pyramids, they're not all the same size. The slightly smaller one is the one that's off.
Okay.
Or if you were to switch it around, that's the thing. It's 3 stars making up a line. So which of the 2 side stars is the one that's wrong or off of the main line? Because you need...
Oh, yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So it could be one or the other of the 2 side stars.
Here's Orion. It's a grouping of the brightest stars in the northern sky. And here's Orion's belt.
Right, that's what the little guy said. To prevent war, the galaxy is on Orion's belt.
Junior, there are no galaxies on Orion's belt. The belt is just these 3 stars.
Yeah, they're not the brightest stars in the night sky.
The North Star is.
No. People think the North Star is the brightest star. That isn't either.
Oh.
It's Sirius.
Oh, are you serious?
I am serious. The dog star is seriously very bright. So this was what Robert Bauval said. Quote, "We have demonstrated with a substantial body of evidence that the pattern of stars that is frozen on the ground at Giza is the form of 3 pyramids, and the Sphinx represents the deposition of the constellation Orion and Leo as they look at the moment of sunrise on the spring equinox during the astronomical age of Leo, i.e. the epoch in which the sun was housed in Leo in the spring equinox. Like all precessional ages, this was 2,160 year period. It is generally calculated to have fallen between the Gregorian calendar dates of 10,970 and 8,810 BC. So he was saying that the pyramids were built that long ago as well.
Yeah, if for that to match up, it would have to be that long ago. No, we know that it wasn't. It was built in... Yeah.
So
4,500 years old.
Yeah, he's saying this is 12,000 years old. So, and also the Sphinx was supposed to represent Leo the lion, and the Nile would be the Milky Way. If you're just looking from a god's eye view, kind of like the Nazca lines, you can see the whole thing if you're looking down on it. So, there are critics of this theory. Among them are astronomers Ed Krupp of the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles and Tony Fairfall of the University of Cape Town, South Africa. Using planetarium equipment, Krupp and Fairfall independently investigated the angle of alignment of Orion's belt.
He gave them a date. They could then, using a planetarium, recreate what that looked like and then see if it matches up.
Stars do move.
Yeah.
And probably not very much in just a couple thousand years, but some of the faster moving ones would have looked a little different. Anyway, they worked all of this out, and they lined up the pyramids on top of the stars. And here is the result.
Not too bad, but that one is really off.
So now think about this a little bit, though. If you're going to line them up, if Orion's belt was made out of just 2 stars, you could line it up perfectly because you're putting 2 points on top of 2 other points.
Oh, so it could be any
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the third one is the one that's really important, and it's not terribly off, but considering how accurate the Egyptians were in measuring things, if they really wanted to make this look just like Orion's belt, they could have been more on than this.
Yeah.
I just showed Cody a picture of the superimposed pyramids over Orion's belt, and Mintaka is on the very edge of the little pyramid. I believe, this is my estimation, I think they could have done better if they were doing that on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So, they found that it somewhat matched, and they estimated that 47 to 50 degrees were the planetarium measurements compared to 38 degrees that formed the pyramids. Krupp pointed out that the slightly bent line formed by the 3 pyramids deviated toward the north, whereas the slight nick in the line of Orion's belt was deformed toward the south. So it didn't even reflect the stars. It was the wrong way around. And in fact, in the original book by Bavall and Gilbert, The Orion Mystery, which compares the images, they didn't reveal that the pyramid map had been inverted to make it more closely match.
Okay.
So they flipped it around to make it look better. Krupp and Fairfall found other problems with the arguments, noting that the Sphinx is meant to represent the constellation Leo, but it really should be on the opposite side of the Nile, which was apparently the Milky Way. It's a stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think some people do think that there's a lot of this theory. There's not only the belt, but then there's the Nile, and then there's
also
the Sphinx.
There's also the I've heard that there's something about the shafts that come out of the pyramid supposedly line up with Orion.
And the thing is, I'm not going to go so far as to say that this is just nothing, like I did with the speed of light, but it seems like coincidence to me. I don't really see enough evidence for it. And maybe parts of it are somewhat true. Mm-hmm. I just don't know. But yeah. Anyway, this has been Garth's second corner, which ends a little less definitely than the first one. But I thought I'd get into a little bit of that because it is astronomy related.
All right. Well, we got a few more. So we got aliens. I kind of said like the idea is that it's aliens, and the Orion thing is like, oh, well, see, it's tied to the stars. It means that they were in...
Well, and I mean, it is lined up with north and south and stuff.
Yeah.
So they are paying attention to the stars in the building of this. Yeah. It's not that the stars aren't important, but
the idea that so there's ancient astronaut theorists who really like to say that it's like the aliens either help build it or. But here's the thing: all the stuff that they bring up they only use the Great Pyramid of Khufu. They don't care about the other two.
Oh, okay.
All they're like, well, it's lined up this way, and this. It's like, and the number adds up to the speed of light. Well, there's 2 other giant pyramids there. Actually, there's several pyramids there at the location.
Yeah.
Why don't the other ones matter,
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, both of the big pyramids are parallel to one another. The smaller one looks like it kind of is, but it's the weird one out anyway. Might be off by a little bit.
There's people who claim that it was built, 70,000+ years ago by aliens. They built it. In that it has special properties, like it is, they're energy generators.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, you can go on and on.
Yeah. Just no. Just no. Like we've already laid out to you. Like we already showed you. Like you can see in the archaeological record. Here are the steps, starting with a step.
Well, and we're pretty. The other thing that kind of flies in the face of this theory about it being 10,000 years ago is there's a lot of evidence to indicate this was like 6,000 years ago. 4,000.
So 4,500 years ago.
The idea that, we know it's 10 just because of this astronomical thing and precession, like, that's pretty...
It's like, no, we have,
pretty
like...
flimsy evidence that it was made thousands of years before all the other evidence.
Yeah, it's like, no, we've already outlined, like, we have archaeological sites that house the workers. We have a papyrus that outlines... inspection work on materials that can be carbon dated.
That was about to be my question. Like, how do they know the age of all this stuff? And they can carbon date this.
Yes.
So that's why it's so well known that this was the time period these were made. It was not 10,000.
But one reason why the aliens theory is
12,000 years ago.
The aliens theory is so prevalent is because of fucking Chariots of the Gods by Eric von Doniget, and he was. Again, a lot of these people who are making these theories never actually went there to look at this stuff. You know, even going back to the early
theorists,
going all the way back to the pyramidology, and then even pyramid power. They never fucking went there.
Well, no, he went there in his mind when he was dousing rods.
And then there's somebody else who supposedly knew the secrets of the pyramids, and this gets brought up all the time. Nikola Tesla knew the secret of the pyramids.
That how he did stuff with electricity?
You know, because when he had his idea for like the
he had a lot of ideas.
Yeah, but he had this idea for making like giant energy generators that would just send energy wirelessly through the air and power the entire planet. He wanted it. He's like, it needs to be built supposedly like the pyramids. It had to be pyramid shaped. It had to be on the same line of latitude as the pyramids in order to work.
I mean, it couldn't hurt.
But here's the thing: is Tesla was also obsessed with the number 3, and that they bring that up like, he knew there was like a secret. It's like numerology. There's some kind of secret thing about 3. The pyramids, 3 sides. No, these pyramids are not 3 sides. There's 3 points when you look at it from the side.
That's true. Pyramids looking down on them are squares. Their footprints are squares.
It's a square with 4 sides that are triangular shaped.
Right.
So these are not.
Yeah, pyramids really are not triangles.
No.
Unless you look at them from one side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, there's just all these theories about it that just ignore. It's like, why are people so resistant to the idea that humans are capable of great things?
I think that a lot of when, because we've covered this sort of thing before, and it does kind of come down to that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like the Incas couldn't have just built those rock walls. They're too impressive. Let's come up with some crazy theory. It's like you're
diminishing the achievements.
You are. Yeah, you're taking away. Like, no, these things were done, and we should all
the fact that they are there.
That.
The fact that they are there tells you that they did it.
Yeah,
like it was done.
Yeah.
It's possible.
And what is Occam's razor? Like, really, aliens? Come on, people they got the sand wet and they put in the work and they
manpower.
Sweated.
They moved it. They did it.
How irritated would you be if you were an ancient Egyptian that helped build the pyramids and you came into the present day and you're like, give me some credit. Yeah.
I mean, granted, we did it for our God. You know, he's real. But
well, he is real in that
there's a pharaoh.
Well, no, I was gonna say this is like one of those intersubjective realities.
Oh, yeah.
The God is real in that the God helped make the pyramid because everyone believed in him. Whether or not he actually exists doesn't matter. He was inspiring. He was an inspiring idea.
Well, I'm gonna quote. This is a quote from renowned Egyptologist Flinders Petrie. He was French. And this is in 1883 he said this. And this was his response to the crazy theories about the pyramids that were already existent at that time.
Okay.
He said, quote, "It is useless to state the real truth of the matter, as it has no effect on those who are subject to this type of hallucination. They can be but left with the flat earth believers and other such people to whom a theory is dearer than a fact."
That quote was from the 1800s.
Yes.
It sounds like it was from yesterday.
It's right down to the flat earthers.
Yeah. That's a good one. I like that.
So real quick, I want to address, I heard from New Jared that he had gotten into an argument with somebody who claimed that there was no way that these were tombs because A, there's nobody in them, and B, why would you build such a conspicuous monument if you didn't want people to rob it?
Okay, I think I see what he's saying. So it's kind of like There are rumors of ancient burial sites for like Alexander the Great and like Genghis Khan and all these people who would have been very wealthy at the time they died, and no one knows what happened to their wealth. So if you can find their tombs, you might find all of this hoarded treasure. So that is a thing. And I think maybe New Jared's friend is saying like, yeah, if the pharaoh had all of this good stuff, he would have hidden his body and not put it in there.
Yeah.
That must be the point.
And I mean, the point is that these were raided. And that's what led, and that's why later
we're not saying it was a good idea to put all your treasure in an obvious giant pyramid, but they did.
and later pharaohs, actually, that's why we like have the tomb of King Tutankhamun, is that they started hiding them in the Valley of the Kings.
So they learned after a few.
They also got to this point where they're like, you know, like the pyramid is just an artificial mountain. Why don't we start making tombs in actual mountains that are already there? And you do find a lot of these like tombs in the Valley of Kings are like carved under and into rock walls that already existed.
It's fascinating to think, because I would always imagine like, oh, there's the pyramids and the ancient Egyptians and they made these pyramids, and then once ancient Egypt was no more and no one was there anymore, then grave robbers took everything. It's like, well, no, people have always lived there. And it sounds like the big pyramids were raided when there were still pharaohs around.
Yeah.
It was very quick. Like, the ancient Egypt wasn't over yet when those tombs were already raided. And that's why they have the Valley of the Kings.
We know that grave robbing was such a problem because we actually have other papyri that outline the capital punishment that you would receive for robbing a tomb.
And yet they still did it.
That punishment?
Yeah. You get entombed in the tomb?
Impalation through the anus.
Oh, man. You must really want that
giant
pharaoh gold.
Rough wooden post shoved up your ass until it comes out of your mouth.
Well, you know what? That sounds like a great time. That's a segue that I can get behind to get into Garth's Corner, unless there's anything else you want to do.
Well, just that... Yeah, people say that like there's no evidence that these were tombs because there's no carvings or writings inside of the pyramids that just say they were a tomb.
Oh, okay.
That's true of those 3 pyramids, but other pyramids have inscriptions inside that are paintings and inscriptions of the death ritual inside the pyramids. So we know.
Every time I've seen things of the insides of pyramid tombs, they're decorated all over the walls with artwork and
so just because these 3 weren't doesn't mean that others weren't.
Yeah, that's true.
And that they were associated with, there's a whole complex with each one of those pyramids that involves other temples in a line that lead to in a procession to the pyramid. So there's an embalming temple. It's sometimes called a valley temple, and that's right at the waterline of that artificial harbor that Hemiunu built. And that's where they embalmed them, and there's inscriptions there. We know that it's like that's been settled. These were tombs.
Okay.
Get fucking over it, or I'll shove a pole up your ass.
So anyway, we're going to get into Garth's Corner now, which I took a big hard right turn. This is going to be all about the Eye of Providence on the back of the $1 bill.
Okay.
So here we go with the Garth's Corner. I see Ken with one N, and his name is Ken. And then I see another Ken with 2 N's, and his name is Ken. Come on, Ken, let's go out and find out what this Eye of Providence is really all about. Oh, you're so good at coming up with monikers about me. What curs can I monic about you? I don't know, I can't monic, Ken. Oh, we're looking for clues to the eyes at the top of a pyramid. The pyramid at the top of the Monster Squadron, and I think that I can kind of see it, but I think I might also need some help. Oh, someone! You there, Ken, please come count the corners of this pyramid with me. I think I need help counting. 1, okay. 2, all right. There's 4 at the bottom of the pyramid, and I see 1 at the top. That makes 5. But I can only see 3 corners in this Garth's Corner for Ken. Welcome to Garth's Corner.
You have to write a song for Ken.
Oh, yeah. So, welcome to Garth's Corner, and sorry, Ken, that wasn't a song for you because I've already written the song. Actually, I haven't. You know what? I can write this song for Ken. So, that song was for Ken, And if you'd like to have your name mentioned in a Garth's Corner song, you can do so and just become a Monster Squadron member.
Yes.
And I'll stick your name in a song just like Ken was stuck into that song. Hope you liked it. And without further ado, we're going to talk about the all-seeing eye of Providence. This symbol was not originally the Illuminati or Freemasons. It was a symbol of Christianity. And when I say the Eye of Providence, I'm talking about
Eye of God.
It's like
Sauron.
it's like the Eye of Sauron, but it looks more like a human being's eye, not a cat eye, with a triangle around it. Triangle. The top is pointing up, just like a pyramid, and you get this triangle shape, like an equilateral triangle, I should say.
Like
with an
somebody
eye.
peeking in through a triangular-shaped hole in the wall.
Yes, exactly.
Where you can see it all.
I have an example here. This is from 1525 AD. This is the Supper at Emmaus by artist. I'm gonna say this wrong probably. Artist Pontoro Carucci. And here's a picture of Jesus with the all-seeing eye above him.
Oh, look at that.
So I think people associate this with Freemasons and like secret cults and weirdness, and that's not untrue. The Freemasons did eventually adopt this symbol, but that was after it was first used in the United States seal, which is what I'm going to get into for this Garth's Corner. And before that, it was a Christian symbol representing God and the Trinity for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Which totally makes sense, yeah, because it's like, the 3 points, that's the Trinity, and then you have the all-seeing eye of God. God sees everything and knows everything.
Yeah, exactly. So
real annoying like that.
We're gonna get into. I don't think we've ever done the backwards carousel of time in a Garth's Corner.
No.
So let's do it. Here we go. We're getting on the backwards carousel of time. It's worth it because we're gonna be back here for a little while. So here we go. Come on.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
Woo! Okay, we've just landed. The year 1776. The birth of a new nation. And we need a seal. The task fell to Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams. Here we are, Cody. I've encased us in a little invisible bubble so they can't see us. They wouldn't hear us anyway. They're right over there in the corner.
Oh, look at them.
Yep, they're thinking.
They're thinking about
what are we gonna do?
Enslaving other human beings and going to whorehouses.
Yeah,
Look at them.
Our microphone is very directional, so I can't quite get their voices here. But I can read lips, so I'm gonna do like the Hal thing from 2001, and I'm gonna look at their lips and tell you what they're saying.
Okay.
Or I'll paraphrase. So Benjamin Franklin, he's saying he wants a seal showing, quote. I'm quoting the lip reading. Moses standing on the shore and extending his hand over the sea, thereby causing the same to overwhelm Pharaoh, who is sitting in an open chariot, a crown on his head and a sword in his hand, rays of a pillar of fire in the clouds, reaching to Moses to express that he acts by the command of the deity, unquote.
All in one seal?
Yeah.
Benny,
Benjamin. Less is more, man. It's a logo. We're making a logo here. You want to be able to see this on a business card. What are you doing? The motto would be "Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God," which is pretty cool. Yeah. I'm not really religious myself, but that's not a bad bad
Basically
motto.
say, like, look, the most Christian thing you can do is rebel. But then it's like, that's not really the thing you want to do on the seal of your government, right?
I don't know. Our government has a lot of iconography about rebelling. It's pretty interesting. We are a unique nation in that way. Jefferson also wanted a biblical thing. He wanted the Israelites wandering around with a pillar of fire guiding them. He wanted that to be the seal of the United States.
How do you represent a whole nation of people wandering around the desert?
How does that make a visual
image?
thing? Yeah, you have like this little group of stick figures and a thing of fire, and that's the whole design. Yeah. Adams wanted, I like Adams's actually. Adams wanted Hercules sitting between two women representing vice and virtue. So that's visually more interesting than these other crazy.
He's like, oh, you guys.
The other guys wanted these murals, and he's going for like three figures.
He's also like, hey, Christianity, all right, but what about Hercules?
Yeah, no, I dig that. That's going even further back. So, they did get an artist named Decimetria, who wanted. So they didn't draw any of these. They just had their descriptions.
Yeah.
They're gonna hire an artist. So here we can see them. They're hiring this artist guy, and he's drawn them the very first possible seal.
And they're describing it to him like some drunk frat person describes the tattoo.
This poor
to the
guy, and
artist.
I've been in this position as a working artist myself, where you have a committee trying to tell you what they want.
I was gonna say
on their logo. Oh
I put
God.
you in this position where I'm like, I want this.
Yeah, but it was just you, and really, yeah, we had that idea of scales for the least haunted logo and this or that, but I think I just kind of like drew it up. It was
during trivia on a bar
It was
napkin.
during a trivia night on a bar napkin.
I was like, how do you convey the idea of something
being less haunted than another thing? Yeah, so 2 ghosts on a scale, pretty literal, but I think it works. Anyway, this poor artist did his best, and here's the first one. So we've got,
God, that's busy.
It's so busy. We've got a female Lady Liberty holding an anchor and a spear. She's on one side, and then we got a male holding a rifle and a tomahawk. So he's war, and she's something or other. She's liberty. And then there's all these seals in the middle for all 13 colonies. They all get their little logo.
Yeah.
And
It's
then
all
E
heraldry.
pluribus unum on the bottom, which we'll see later. That's familiar. And above, the all-seeing eye. See that?
Oh, yeah, it's already there.
So it's already there. This is an early sketch, and it's already there.
E pluribus unum out of many one.
Yeah, and that actually came apparently from a gentleman's magazine that took stories and put them together in issues. Not Playboy, just like a magazine.
Yeah.
But out of many stories, one issue of this magazine, I guess. But that was the magazine's
There's
motto,
a lot of mottos and expressions that we use that started off as advertising that you don't even think about it. When it rains, it pours.
What is that really?
Morton Salt. Because
That's the salt with the girl with the umbrella.
Yeah, and there's an anti-caking agent in there. So when it rains and it's humid, the salt will still pour.
What?
Yes. When it rains, it pours.
I always thought that meant like, if it rains a little bit, boy, it's gonna pour. Like, there's no such thing as a little bit of rain.
And then that also
I always misunderstood
and
that.
Then I always thought it was supposed to be about like misfortune, like when it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
You know?
If you get a little bit of misfortune, it's gonna keep coming.
Yeah.
It's a very pessimistic
advertising slogan
term.
for salt.
When it rains, the salt will still pour. Okay, so they looked at his sketch and they're like, yeah. They decided to put off the whole project. 4 years later, 1780, Congress tries it again. I don't know if the Revolutionary...
Back to the drawing board.
The Revolutionary War is, I think, over by this time, because let's not forget 1776 was when independence were declared, and we call that the beginning of the nation. But then there was the whole war where we won, so we could retroactively say, yeah, no, we started 1776.
Yeah.
So whether or not the war was quite over, I think it was basically over by then, by 1780. So Congress is going to try again. They didn't like the original design. So they came up with this one, which also, I guess it has an indigenous American with
a very racist depiction of an indigenous
Well, yeah,
American.
it's just a generic. It's kind of like a cigar Indian. On one side of a shield, and see all the little stars above. Those are all the 13 colonies, and there's Lady Liberty. So we're getting little bits of it, but the triangle with the eye's gone. So of course they didn't like it. Lame. Anyway, they tabled the matter again. 2 years later, 1782, we're going to try again. So they hired a lawyer named William Barton, who made this. Here's another seal. I don't know how this is a seal. It's a whole drawing. We still have 2 people on either side of a shield. This time the guy is a white dude. And
we got an eagle holding some stuff.
An eagle. So you see all these visual... They're playing with all these visual things that are going to show
up in the right-hand corner.
Cody, what do you think that is up in the right-hand corner?
I see the side of a pyramid, I think.
And here it is, the very first version of the eye.
Deo favente perennis.
Yes.
God, favors something?
Ooh, I should know that.
With God favoring it, or everlasting.
Yeah, something generic. Yeah, that's what I figured.
The literal translation is like he, meaning God, favors our undertaking.
Oh, okay. And they're undertaking a pyramid. So as you actually, if you look more closely, this is in fact a step pyramid.
Oh, it is, yeah.
And it is unfinished, and there's an eye at the top, and there's been some ideas that maybe it's an unfinished pyramid because the work is not done in making this, the United States is a work in progress, which is true.
Sorry, I had the wrong translation. It is with God's everlasting favor.
Oh, okay.
So I saw the perennis, and I was thinking like perennial plants that come back all the time. Perennials versus
good.
annuals.
If you notice, though, there's no actual triangle around the eye. That was really common.
The eye would be the capstone of the.
So there's an
it's that electrum plated.
Yeah, there's an implied triangle because of the shape of the pyramid below, but there is no actual triangle. In fact, the guy who drew this, William Barton, the lawyer, he had the idea of, instead of an eye, having a palm tree.
Oh.
So we might have had a pyramid with a palm tree on the top.
Okay.
And the idea is like a palm tree, even when it's cut down to the stub, it'll grow back even stronger.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's about hardiness and we shall prevail kind of a thing.
Could have been like a dandelion.
Congress did not like this either. Later, they tried again. Secretary of Congress Charles Thompson drew an eagle with an olive branch and arrows, and on the back, we get a design that looks very much like the dollar bill. In fact, it's pretty much the whole thing.
It's almost there, yeah.
And this is all drawn, but if you look at the back of a dollar
bill...
And
I'm assuming those Roman numerals at the bottom are, 1776?
You got it, yeah, exactly. And so we have Annuit Coepes Nuevos Ordro Secorum, which is a... Everybody always says New World Order. I think it's more accurate to say New Order of the Ages. Yeah. It's inspired by a line from Virgil, actually. And Congress approved. They like this. Finally. And then later, in 1797, the Freemasons adopted the eye.
Okay.
So this was before that. A lot of the Founding Fathers, of course, were Freemasons. Probably a lot of the people in Congress were, too. And they also liked this. So maybe the Freemasons adopted it because the United States did. Who knows? Regardless, the U.S. wasn't really dealing with paper money at the time, so it's not like the next year it showed up on the $1 bill.
No.
Not at all. In fact, the Eye of Providence was added, and we're going to jump forward again in the backwards carousel of time here, to 1935.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Around this is before, and they don't even say "In God We Trust" on it yet.
No, we only did that because of the communists.
Yeah.
Before then, it was just... one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah.
Not under nothing. So Henry Wallace, Secretary of Agriculture and future Vice President, had read about this seal in a long-lost drawing of the pyramid. So people, Congress approved this. This is the seal, and then moved on for decades, and it never really got used, and no one even remembered this drawing. Yeah. So he was like, I guess he was interested in this stuff, and Henry Wallace found this old drawing, and he liked what he considered it to be a New Deal reference. If you look at this, out of many one, New World Order or New Order of the Ages, New Deal.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he's like, hey, this is perfect. So he got Roosevelt together with the cabinet. Roosevelt was into it. He kind of asked everybody in the cabinet around, hey, is this going to offend anybody? Because it is a Christian thing, this Eye of Providence.
Yeah.
Do we really want to go down that road? And even if it is Christian, is it going to offend Christians that we're using it in this context?
On money?
If the Freemasons have been using this for a while. Is that going to be a problem? And everybody in the cabinet's like, no, it's going to be great. No one's going to think that anything's weird. There won't be conspiracy theories about the dollar bill.
Oh, man.
So, they all loved the idea, and they put it on the bill. And that's the entire story of the Eye of Providence. I've got a little footnote to this, and that is there was at one point a 1/3 of a dollar bill, and this was designed by Benjamin Franklin. And here's a picture of it, which I love. Here's 1/3 of a dollar. It's like a little square, and there's a ray of light coming down on a sundial.
Okay.
And it says, underneath the sundial, mind your business. And I guess it's Ben Franklin, so it's a pun. It's like a reference to time and money both fly.
Uh-huh.
So this is time flying, so your money's also gonna fly, so mind your business. It doesn't really translate in modern terms, but this is Ben Franklin's doing a little joke in this illustration. Yeah. So shout out to Today I Found Out by Simon Whistler. He did an episode on the all-seeing eye, the Eye of Providence, and If you want to watch that, it'll get into even more detail than I just told
he does a good deep dive into the building of the Pyramid of Khufu too.
There you go.
That's like over half an hour long.
So yeah, check out Today I Found Out. And with that, this has been Garth's Corner of the last of three. 3 for the number of sides of a pyramid.
Tesla would be delighted by the number 3. Seriously, that video, the same one I mentioned at the very beginning, where it was like, no one knows how, why, blah, 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 blah.
But we do know that it was.
But then there's a whole chapter in that thing that's just on Nikola Tesla knew the truth about pyramids. It's like, motherfucker, no. It's an incredibly convenient and efficient way to stack things high.
Yeah, you can't knock a pyramid over. You can't tip it over.
No, you can demolish it. You could probably, knock a few of the top off of it.
Are you a Babylonian? Do you want to make a tower to God? Make it pyramid shaped. It won't fall over.
Tower of Babel.
Babel.
A ziggurat.
Ziggurat. Okay, so that has been the episode. Long episode this episode.
Yeah, it was long.
But, I think it was it had to be long because we went over the entire history of ancient Egypt.
We didn't even go over, and there's so many more theories and things about the pyramid that I couldn't even get into. But just rest assured, no matter what they are.
You think Cody sounded irritably upset about how stupid people were with just those?
Oh, there's so many.
There's dozens of others.
I mean, I don't even know where I would
Your
stop.
eyes couldn't have rolled further. We had to stop.
And also, just when I outlined how they built the pyramid, there's way more to it. But I can't get into every single aspect. This is not a comprehensive podcast. We can't give you all that information.
We tried. We actually recorded an episode of this. We did a first version of this, and we spent like an hour and a half, and we hadn't even gotten to anything other than we were still in the beginnings of how they made pyramids.
Yeah.
We gotta start over. This is gonna be way too long.
Yeah, and even then, so rest assured, there's more to that story. But it does not involve aliens. It does not involve slaves. It does not involve interdimensional beings, Atlanteans, any of that. It just involves a bunch of bureaucracy and centralized government and religion. And see, I think a lot of the people who are proponents of these theories, these pyramid theories about how it was done in ancient astronauts, notice how they also coincidentally are libertarians who don't believe in the power of a centralized government.
Oh, that's interesting.
Or taxation.
Yeah, if they see a story about a lot of people getting together and being organized, it doesn't really jive with a good story.
Where their labor,
Yeah,
these people's labor specifically was a form of taxation
that
then yielded this giant public works project that also along the way benefited the economy and improved the life for everybody. No.
Interesting.
Aliens. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to say about that.
So if you want to build bridges and redo our infrastructure, maybe take a leaf out of the Pharaoh's book. I don't know what's the moral here. Anyway, amazing stuff was done. I think that's it.
It's public works, and that taxation and bureaucracy can be put to slightly beneficial
to impressive use.
To impressive use.
I would put it that way because I'm not sure what the pyramids ultimately benefited.
Well, think about the civilian.
They probably could have done a lot of more important things with all that time, but hey, it was impressive.
Well, think about the Civilian Conservation Corps and FDR's National Reclamation Act as part of the New Deal.
Sure,
it built the Hoover Dam. It built the highway system.
Well, okay,
it built. It electrified America.
It didn't build a giant pyramid to FDR, though. It built stuff that was useful to everybody.
It built the world's largest concrete structure that will last as long as the pyramids did. The only difference is this one generates hydroelectricity.
Yeah.
And no, it wasn't called... they didn't name it after FDR, but they did name it after Hoover.
The vacuum cleaner. Yeah, amazing.
Yes. Because it sucked up a bunch of resources.
All right. I think that has been an episode. We got to go.
Well, let's talk about our Monster Squadron producers.
Yes. We
the
got
Monster
a new one.
Squadron has grown by one. So our Monster Squadron patron producers, Travis Alexander, the Bi Barbarian, Rachel Krieger, Tom Dahl, Justin Duckham, Kelly Flynn, Gunnar Franks, Carla Harrington, Havelock, New Jared, Ken with 2 N's.
Ding, ding, ding.
Brian Lamb, TJ Levenhagen, Alicia Overton, Jordan Ramey, Blue Roan, and Tatum.
All right. Thank you, one. Thank you all. Our squadron grows
out of many one
by the day.
Blueberry Monster Squadron Unum.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that's it, man.
Okay, well, until next time, which will be our 4-year anniversary for reals this time.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do our real anniversary episode next. So get ready for some nostalgic clips and all kinds of.
Also,
fun stuff.
hey, if you are listening to this on release day, which is April the 12th of 2024, it's a Friday, and you're listening to this early enough in the day, and you are in San Diego, come on down to the Whaley House. I'm going to be at the Whaley House with Ken, with 2 N's from the Monster Squadron. We are going to be checking it out.
I've heard that's quite a spooky house.
It is reported to be one of the most haunted locations in America.
Bring your blacklight.
Well, I'm not doing a nighttime tour. That costs more, but I'm doing the daytime tour.
Just close your eyes and then bring the blacklight.
And imagine ghosts in the same way that someone might imagine that they're in the pyramid when they are definitely not, and they're in France.
Exactly what you and Ken need to be doing.
Yes.
Okay. Well, have fun.
Yeah.
With that, and we'll see you.
All right.
When the only thing.
So until next time.
That's haunted.
Until next time, the only thing that's haunted
is you.
Say goodbye.
Another good episode done. Time to check my own notes. Oh, I'm so glad no one's here right now. I hate talking to people when I check my notes.
Garth.
Oh, yes, yeah. Yes.
Dude, I
What's
almost totally forgot something about the pyramids.
Okay, great. I'm all yours.
All right, so remember how I said that Khufu might still be in that pyramid? It was
It
just happened, dude.
What?
Well, no, I mean, like, I said that, and then I said I would talk about it after, and then I completely forgot to go back to it. So I knew our listeners would be really upset with me if I didn't.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal, man. So, like, there's 3 main chambers in the Great Pyramid of Khufu.
3 chambers.
One below ground, one about midway up, and there's one that's, like, even further higher up, and that's the burial chamber.
Oh, okay.
Right? And then above that burial chamber, there's actually 5 other little pockets of space that are above there to act as, apparently it's some kind of way of relieving pressure so the whole thing doesn't crush the other thing.
Full of snakes or something?
No, they're just empty air pockets. They got into there because some British dude dynamited his way in, right?
Oh.
Now, to get to that chamber, there's this long corridor they call I think it's the causeway or the gallery that goes up to that. Well, they now know that above that gallery, there's another giant empty space. And they know this.
Did sonar or LiDAR?
They just discovered this. It's because, dude, they cosmic rays. Like,
what?
Yeah, it's not. Is it? Are they quarks? No.
You mean neutrinos?
Neutrinos, yes. They pass through the pyramid.
They pass through just about everything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So they've been using this technology to try to predict volcanic eruptions by measuring They can know how fast the neutrinos pass through the mountain, and then by putting sensors around it and knowing the different speeds, they can tell if they've slowed down or something like that. I'm not a scientist.
Oh wow, that's far out, man.
To be more specific, they aren't actually using neutrinos. What they're using is muons. These particles are born high in the Earth's atmosphere, and they go down toward the surface, and they go straight through the pyramid. And some of these particles do imprint on very sensitive detectors that we've constructed. So that's how they're using it. It's muons, not neutrinos.
Right?
Yeah.
And based on that, they can see if magma chambers are getting more dense. And then they can try to see if that makes a volcano. Well, they took that same principle and applied it to the Great Pyramid. And the neutrinos changed speeds. And so now they know that not only is there a space above that grand gallery that's like the entryway in, that space is the size of the fuselage of a 747.
That's amazing that they can detect things that way in solid material.
Well, it's like X-rays.
I guess so, but like, wow, that's crazy.
So
are they going to try to get in somehow?
I don't know how you would other than like dynamiting your way in. But it might just be another one of those like relief spaces that's above the burial chamber.
Okay.
So it could be just something that's supposed to keep some of the pressure off of that big grand, like
It's a pressure thing where if the pyramid were all completely solid, other than the chambers they want, there would be too much weight in certain places.
Possibly.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah. So the idea is that
Okay.
they by adding these like extra spaces, if one of them collapsed, it's like fail safe. You know, it's like, oh well, we still got like 2 other roofs to crush before it gets to the really important.
Yeah, we don't want the roof falling in on the pharaoh.
So it's possible that it could be one of those chambers, but we don't know.
So there are as yet unsolved mysteries in the pyramid after all.
So it could be maybe Khufu's in there.
Whoa.
You don't know.
Maybe that's where the body actually was. It was hidden within his tomb. It was hidden.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
So I just wanted to point that out that, yeah, we're using cosmic neutrinos to look inside of pyramids and volcanoes.
Fuck yeah, neutrinos. Woo. All right, man.
Now I'm done.
Okay, I'm all right. Sounds good, man.
All right. The Least Haunted podcast is recorded before a dead studio audience and is a presentation of Sequoidea Productions, LLC.